Okay, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg, the first Hanging with Mangg of 2021. And let me tell you, this is going to be a good Hanging with Mangg. I got plenty of stuff to talk about today, actually, and this could be the best Hanging with Mangg in the last few years. So stay tuned. We're playing some Cyberpunk 2077. Basically, at this point in the game, I mean, obviously the Let's Play is a little behind where I am, but not too much, because most of my game time with this has been just off camera. And at this point, I'm basically just running around doing like these miscellaneous nonsense things just to get money and XP and things like that. And that's it. And that's it. Because I feel like, you know, when I do an open world game, I want to like do everything. I want to clear it all out. All these little like fucking exclamation points, they got to get gone. And it's really annoying in this game because all these exclamation points are fucking cars. They're fucking vehicles you have to buy. And so I just have to get a lot of money. Like 129,000 for this one. I mean, a lot of these aren't too bad, but 50,000, 115,000, 21,000. I mean, it adds up. I've already spent like 500 grand, 225,000. Crazy shit. Crazy shit. And I was looking up like what's the best way to make money, and they're just like, oh, you know, run around and do side shit, you know. There is sort of like an exploit you can do. Where basically one of these side quests gives you like this painting, and you can sell the painting for 4,000, but then you can buy it back for $5. So you make a lot of profit over and over. But it feels, I mean, it's an exploit, so I don't feel great about doing it. I mean, I did it a little bit because it's like all these fucking cars piss me off. But you still have to run around to all these different vendors because each one of these drop points only has $20,000. So you can only do it a few times before you got to bounce over to the next one. So it's still not like super fast, but that's probably the fastest way to get money. Anywho, from what I've heard, the actual story content is not that lengthy. So I don't know how much I have left, but yeah, anyways. Also, driving is really tricky in this game. I struggle with driving fast cars. I really only prefer the motorcycles. But anyway, I didn't come here to talk about Cyberpunk 2077. It's probably a little loud. There we go. Let us talk about my channels. So, this week on this channel, we of course had Cyberpunk. We had Final Fantasy XIV. We had Dragon Quest V. Those will all be continuing. Oh, look. I'm naked out the top of my car. Brilliant. What else did we have? We had Hunt a Killer, Blair Witch, Episode 3, of which I guess there'll be a Episode 3 Part 2, because we didn't finish it. We had Two Brothers Play, Final Fantasy VI, which partway through I gave up on Brave New World. I mean, I feel a little bad, but then I also don't feel that bad because I have gotten farther in that ROM. Oh shit. Oh shit. I've gotten to the world of Ruin in that ROM hack, and I really only stopped because I moved on to other things. Not like I'm completely stuck. So, it's possible sometime down the line I'll do like an actual Let's Play of that, and we'll dive a little bit deeper. Because usually, like during Two Brothers Play, when I'm streaming with him, I don't talk as much as I'm just when I do a Let's Play. So I think if I did a Let's Play of it down the line, we could go into a bit more further detail. I could take my time a bit more. It wouldn't be like a race or anything. Because when I was playing that on the stream, I mean, I'm racing to try and catch up with him. So mistakes are being made, and yeah. Always takes some time to get used to driving physics in games. Yeah, and I don't know. Like, I remember really hating Grand Theft Auto 4 because I just could not get used to the driving physics at all. And like a lot of racing games, I don't know, I've played some racing games and I just can't handle it. Whereas, I don't know, I'll play like an arcadey racing game, like a Need for Speed or something, and that feels great and it feels fun. So I don't know, there must just be sort of that more of a realistic style that I don't care for. I like the motorcycles in this game though. So yeah, anyways, partway through Two Brothers Play, then I switched over to just regular Final Fantasy VI on the Super Nintendo, and I gave myself a fast forward button so I could just sort of race to catch up, and I basically ended that where I started that stream on Brave New World. So I pretty much did like 5 hours of gameplay in an hour, which was pretty good. So yeah, I'll continue at the start of the next stream. I'll continue to use fast forward for a little bit until maybe I get to like the start of the World of Ruin, and then I won't touch that anymore, and I'll just try and catch up normally. So that's what's going on there. Yeah, I think that's that. That's that. So, yeah, next week, Cyberpunk, Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy V. Probably more the Blair Witch Part 2 thing on Wednesday. Just because, you know, we'll get it done. And Two Brothers Play on Saturday. Over on the Exploring series, I released a video about, give me a second, it was the Lord Blackwood, right? Was that this Monday? Yes, it was, because that was the thing I made a switch. It was supposed to be Church of the Second High Toth, and I made the switch. So, Church of the Second High Toth will be tomorrow's video. I mean, it's not like, oh, I spent 2 weeks working on that video. It's going to be insane. It's going to be 2 hours long. No, it's not. Because mostly this week I was just taking it easy. I like to bring in the New Year and Christmas with a bit of a break. Which I think is only human. And, you know, at least, you know, I didn't take like a complete break. where I don't release a video. That would be no bueno. But it wasn't really even much of a break. It was really just like a break from SCP, because I had to spend a lot of time this week working on the first Final Fantasy video. This is going to be a time-consuming project. I mean, I sort of realized that going into things. But, you know, it's a new process for me, so I think it'll take some time to, you know, iron out the kinks. But, you know, like an SCP video, all I have to do is read the documents and then write the script and put it together. Final Fantasy puts in the process of recording the stuff, which if I want to make, you know, a 40-minute video, that's like 5 hours of game footage. So I have to record 5 hours of game footage, which isn't a quick, easy process. I mean, I'm not saying it's not enjoyable, and as far as jobs go, that's a pretty easy thing to do, but that's time. Then, oh, that might be a cop. You're not a cop. No, you're not a cop. Kill yourself. Kapow! So not only after you record it all, then I have to go back through and watch all this footage. So I can, like, basically use it as, like, say, a big document, you know, all this dialogue and things like that. So that goes a little bit faster than 5 hours because I do tend to skip through, but I have to pause so I can write out the, you know, my script, and it takes a while. So then once I get the script written, then I have to go through the footage a third time so I can edit it and cut it down to fit, you know, what I'm talking about. And that's the part where I'm at right now. So we'll see how that goes. But not a, you know, it's definitely a lengthy process. So I hope it pays off. I hope people like it. Are there even cop cars in this game, or do the police just spawn in? Both. I mean, there are cop cars, like, there are cops present in the world. You can see them. You can notice them. If you do a crime next to them, they will notice. But if you do a crime anywhere, they'll notice. Because Big Brother's always watching, I guess. And they will just continually spawn in. And I could actually show you, like, if you kill a cop, you will instantly be swarmed by, like, 8 more out of nowhere. So, yeah, they will just spawn. And but it's also, they will also despawn just as quickly. So it's incredibly easy to get away from the police if you just keep driving in, like, the same direction. They will just despawn out of existence because the game can't handle it. Yeah. That doesn't, I haven't really had much issue with that. That doesn't bother me, but, like, there are some side quests. Like, there's this whole sequence of side quests where you do car races. And it has, like, the worst rubber banding I've ever seen in my entire life. And there's not even, like, subtle about it. Like, if you look at your mini-map while you're doing one of these races, you will just see the cars just continually, like, teleport right behind you. It's insane. I don't know how that, like, cleared. I think they do that specifically so these cars don't just, like, despawn because they get 100 feet behind you or something, but it's so bullshit. Yeah, the game has issues. The game has some issues. Not really ready for prime time yet, but I have had my fun with it, and that's what. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to mention for my channel. Oh, they're both my channels, but for this channel, I think this week we'll probably I'll probably do my top 10 games of 2020. I think it's time. I was waiting a little bit just to put a bunch of time into Cyberpunk, see where it stands. I think I'm ready to rank it now, so probably do the top 10. A lot of good games this year. I got a lot of good picks. Where the fuck am I going? What is this GPS? Anyways, yeah, so the Final Fantasy thing, that will get released this week. Fingers crossed. You know, the first video, it's kind of bullshit because the first video in any series like that that's numbered is going to be the one with the most views. But the problem with Final Fantasy 14 is that, you know, the first, like, third of the whole campaign is not that great. You know, pretty much everyone will say, like, oh, you know, A Realm Reborn's not that great, but keep going, it gets a lot better. And it's like, well, I have this whole first episode talking about the story, and it's all just, like, bullshit, like, minor tasks that you do at the start of the game. I mean, you do bullshit minor tasks throughout the entire game, but the story is just, like, it barely, like, scratching the surface. So, I don't know, I want to make it interesting enough that people are like, oh, I want to watch episode 2. I want to see where this goes. So I left it on kind of a cliffhanger, but there isn't much cliffhangers that early, so. Come on. Suicide. Boom. Anywho, so that's what's going on these channels. Good stuff coming our way. Brand new year. New Year's always exciting because I always start a new side series now, and it's like a lot of excitement, a lot of nervousness. Could go in any direction. You know, the D&D series I think I'm overall pleased with the D&D series. It performed about as well as I expected. I had some fun times with it. I think people that did watch it enjoyed the videos, so I'd call that a success. I hope the Final Fantasy series is at least that successful. Anywho, what else have we got to talk about? Let's talk about RPGs. That's right, I have an RPG thing to talk about. It's been ages. It's 2021, baby. So I mentioned this last couple times, I think, but my family wanted to get back into family RPG night, as every family should have. So in the last few days, we not only had one, we had 2 sessions. We had a session on New Year's Eve, and then they wanted to do it again yesterday, so we did another one. Oh my god, I got leveled. I thought this was a very low difficulty. And so not only did we have 2 sessions in 3 days, but my dad played for the first time in his life. First time in his life. We've tried to talk him into not only like D&D and stuff like that, but we've tried to talk him into just like, you know, basic board games and card games and things like that. And he just has always refused. it's not like he doesn't like games, because he's a big fan of like Civilization, which is basically just a digital board game. And he's a huge fan of Hearthstone, which, I mean, it's like, okay, but for whatever reason, we could just not get him to play anything on a table until this week. I don't know exactly what convinced him to give it a shot. I think it was more like, you know, we're getting together every week, and he was just getting left out and left at home because he didn't want to play. So I think my mom just talked him into giving it a shot just to see if he likes it. I didn't even think he would play at first. I thought he would just maybe sit in and like observe, but this dude got into it, man. Made his first character basically like an outcasted royalty, so like ex-royalty, that goes by the name of the Duke, I guess is like a nickname. And so just trying to, you know, earn his way in life through adventuring with no real ties to his past as royalty. It's like your dad, and you got him play Uno with everyone, and he liked it. There you go. I mean, baby steps, right? And so, yeah, hearing my dad try to convince my mom to pretend to be a prostitute so they could sneak into a castle was just like, it was like mind blowing. It was like, what am I witnessing? This is insane. What the fuck? That's how we're ending 2020. It's just insane. But yeah, he got into it, and the first session went really well. You know, I gave them this scenario where they had to kidnap this archpriest who was holed up in this massive castle, this well-guarded place, but there were all these like corrupt priests involved that they could bribe, and there were corrupt guards, and there were all these different things that they could potentially do to sneak this archpriest out of there and kidnap him. It was very open-ended, and it was basically a tutorial, or like an entry-level thing in how to pull off a heist. And so, because I thought, for me, I mean, that's like a dream. That's like a dream scenario right there. Just an open-ended thing with a tough goal, but, you know, the limit is your imagination. That's it. And for me, I'd love that. And in the first session, they got into it, and they were coming up with all sorts of plans. But the problem is, they were all very equal. They were all very equal in as far as, like, the plan making.
Yo, no cuddling allowed!
So, did that guy say no cuddling allowed? I think you have to kill yourself for that. That's a kill yourself kind of statement. Hold on. Go ahead. I'll watch. There you go. You can think about what you said. Anyways, they were all very equal in their plan making. So they were all just sort of tossing around ideas. But they were all sort of just like the start of ideas. They were the inklings of plans. There was nothing like concrete. And so there was no one in their group that stood up and was like, okay, that's a good start to a plan. Let's go with that and keep working on it. You know, there was none of that. It was all just them sort of just continually throwing out stuff, which is very different than my friend group, where basically I will just sit there and come up with the whole plan and then tell them what the plan is. And sometimes there will be a little bit of conversation, a little bit of tweaking, you know, some input from the others, but mainly, you know, I'm the plan guy, and I like that, and they seem to like that, because whenever I give them the chance to come up with their own plans, it usually doesn't go too well. God damn it, I'm walking here. I'm on the fucking curb, you piece of shit. Anyways, what are my thoughts on Cyberpunk besides, you know, you like playing it? Yeah, I mean, that's basically, I like playing it. I've spent like around 60 hours in it. It's glitchy. It's not perfect. And it's not really like revolutionary in any way, I guess, or it doesn't feel revolutionary in any way. It's sort of odd. Like Red Dead 2, I like that game like blew my mind. Like from a technological perspective. It was crazy just how detailed that world was and all that. And I was just so impressed. But I didn't actually spend that much time playing it. Whereas this game, I don't know, I don't feel that impressed with it, but I've spent more time playing with it. So I guess this game is just more enjoyable to play. Not perfect, but I think it's a pretty good game. And I mean, you get a gun like this, what's not to like? You can make people kill themselves. What's not to like? It is a very easy game. On normal difficulty. I don't know why I'm having these problems recently where just I play these games and I find them to be way too easy. I mean, this game isn't like Ghost of Tsushima level, but I don't know. I haven't struggled too much. Right, so basically the scenario in this D&D adventure was this archpriest has been writing like publications that are very controversial in the church system. Yeah, he's basically like become a controversial pope, and the king of the whole region is not too pleased with this. The king wants everything, you know, sort of safe and steady. You know, there's no separation of church and state here. He wants fucking control. So this fucking pope that's saying all this shit, it's not flying. So the king called the archpriest in for, you know, a disciplinary review or whatever. And of course, the pope, the archpriest, refused. Now, normally they would just send in like a legion of soldiers and just deal with it that way. But I guess the implication was that there's some tricky political situations going on. This pope maybe has some more supporters than the king would like. And he doesn't just want to make like an open martyr of this guy and take him down through force. So that's where the players come in. And why am I? Oh, here we go. I didn't really spend a lot of time like trying to figure out like why these people specifically have been called in to help with this mission, but you know, this guy's heard your name before. You seem capable, as funny as that might be. So you've been hired to do this, and they got to go in. They have to kidnap the archpriest and bring him back alive. And if they do, they'll be given 1,000 gold pieces. Each. 1,000 gold pieces each. The king's ransom. And they're allowed to keep any treasures they find in the castle. So this is a big, big job. Almost too big, really, for the first one, but it's meant to sort of just be like an introduction to pulling off a heist. If they came in with all these like magical spells and these magical equipment and rituals and things like that, where they could walk through walls and you know, things like that, it sort of invalidates it. And I mean, I've utilized all that sort of shit before, but that's because I know how to pull off the fundamentals. And you need to know the fundamentals because you might not always have that kind of fancy shit. You know, you might go into a situation where you can't walk through the walls. You know, so you got to be able to just deal with the basics. I think probably I appreciate this module and the lessons it's teaching more than they would ever. appreciate it. But that's fine. So they arrive in the town, and the thing about this is there's a very strict time limit here. They have like 54 hours from arriving. And at that point, the priest will flee under a very heavy armed guard to this impenetrable fortress. So they have very limited time to pull this off. So really, they should just be spending the first day and a half just gathering information about the castle, about the people inside the castle, the archpriest's schedule, you know, where he's likely to be, weak points in the castle security, all that kind of stuff. And they sort of did that. They did start right away with some information gathering. They poked around the market. They poked around the tavern. They were listening to some rumors. And then, like, 4 hours went by, and they're like, all right, let's come up with a plan. It's like, are you really ready to come up with a plan? They eventually settled. They heard this rumor that this bridge leading between the castle and the nearby big cathedral, there's this covered bridge. And they heard that some of the supports of this bridge are actually hollow. And there are trapdoors that you can just crawl up inside of to sneak onto this covered bridge without anyone knowing. And so their plan was to find out if these trapdoors exist, and then sneak in there when the archpriest is walking across and nab him, and then take him down back through the trapdoor and put him in a boat on the river and sail away. It's an okay plan on the surface. The problem is the archpriest never once walks across that covered bridge. Ever. And I like this module because it shows you the hour-by-hour schedules of, like, every notable character. So no matter what hour it is, you can always look and see, oh, okay, he's here in this room, he's here in this room. So I could tell just by looking at the schedule, the archpriest never leaves, like, the 3rd floor of the castle. So, yeah, you can get onto the covered bridge in a sneaky way and maybe get into the castle through that way. But it's not really a venue for grabbing the archpriest. Now, here's the thing, though. They were very stuck on this idea. And they were fleshing out this whole thing of renting a boat and timing it right and getting everything right so they could grab this guy and clonk him over the head and deal with his guards real quick and take him down into their little smuggling boat. And so I, as a DM... you know, you have to be flexible. And they ended up bribing this gate guard for any information about when the archpriest might be on this covered bridge and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want to just say, oh, well, he never goes on that fucking covered bridge. Because, you know, they're doing well. So I wanted to accommodate that. So I'm like, okay, tomorrow, 1 o'clock, he's going to go across the covered bridge with Father Osmond to go to the cathedral for confession. Now, according to the module, the archpriest has his confession on the 3rd floor. So, you know, whatever. But for the sake of this, we'll change it. And we're like, okay, here's your window. Now, that's not like a guarantee that you're going to crack this case open and do it successfully. But it's something. But that's where we ended, like, the first session. And I felt, you know, things were pretty, I think we all felt pretty good after the first session ended. They were in a pretty good place. They had a plan in mind. Not everything was ironed out, but there was a plan. Then the second session hit, and things started to fall apart. Not exactly sure where, but they seemed to sort of just give up on the covered bridge idea, and I'm not sure why. Part of it was when I was driving home with my parents after the first session, I was just throwing out some, like, I think some other ideas that they could have gone with. I didn't, not that they could go. I mean, I gave them a plan that I came up with just when I was reading the thing that was like a Mangg plan. That was like a Frederick Zoller kind of plan, where you just walk in and you convince the archpriest that you were sent here to kidnap him, but, secretly you believe his teachings and you're part of a secret organization that is preaching what he's writing. And he has traitors inside the castle, but they have a ship waiting to escort him to a monastery. Some shit like that. That's a Mangg plan. And so I was just telling my parents about this as, like, something that I would do. I mean, just telling them, like, how flexible this could really be. Like, this does not have to just be a throw him in a sack and toss him in the river. Like, you can do all sorts of stuff in D&D. That's why it's awesome. I was just having a conversation. Then, of course, my mom has a big mouth.
Attention all NCPD subcons. Suspected
and must have shared this conversation. Because my aunt starts the second session by saying, I got a new idea. What if we do this? What if we just go in and tell him that we were sent there to kidnap him? And we get him to trust us. Yeah, I wonder where you heard that shit. And it's like, obviously I didn't elaborate on the whole plan to my parents. And you need to sort of be a specific type of player to pull something like that off. Like, that's one of the trickier ways to pull off this kidnapping.
He's mine!
But they didn't do that, obviously. But this got them on the idea of, well, maybe we don't have the best plan. Maybe we could do something a little trickier. So they went back on their tangent of just coming up with all sorts of different plans.
Right there!
They did, however, go to the covered bridge. They went up through the trapdoor just to, like, check out the covered bridge and what the situation looked like. And so in my head, the covered bridge, when they went up through the trapdoor in one of these supports that just opened up into the middle of the covered bridge, there would be, like, long sections of rugs, like a red carpet kind of thing, just running along the length of the covered bridge. And the trapdoor was underneath a section of this rug. So when they opened the trapdoor, they sort of felt this resistance of this rug. And they eventually poked their heads up a little bit and realized that, there was a rug above them. So they sort of moved it out of the way as they opened this trapdoor to take a look. And they saw that on each end of this covered bridge, there were these black endo guards, which are basically like these fantasy Terminators for the module. These, like, super intimidating, like, cannot be bribed, cannot be bought, cannot be intimidated, cannot be persuaded. Just monsters that are like the archpriest's personal guard. And so they're sprinkled throughout the city and throughout the castle to discourage players from taking, like, a combative route. And so they saw a couple of these standing on either end of the covered bridge. And I was planning when they would actually do this grab, when he would go to confession. I wasn't actually planning on having these black endo guard there. I was just going to have regular guards. But I just wanted to put a little fear in them, a little uncertainty that maybe everything's not going to be as peachy keen as they pictured in their heads. And they started talking like, oh, well, maybe we should just knock out these black endo guards and sneak in. I'm like, oh, boy. And they did some more discussing about what exactly to do. And for the whole module, I had given them 3 hints. So at any time, if they were unsure about something, they could ask me for a hint. Not as like a DM hint, but as like me, if I were playing this as like an experienced player, what would I do? So at that point, when they were just sort of in the covered bridge chatting, they decided to use a hint. And all I said was like, well, you know, I didn't know what they exactly wanted to hint on. So all I said was like, well, look, I'll give you a small hint right now. If you don't fix the rug from when you open the trap door, they're going to like steal off the whole thing. And you will lose this opportunity to do this grab on the covered bridge. And they all just sort of looked at me with like stunned eyes. And then my dad was like, well, obviously. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what you were thinking of. If I hadn't said anything, you would have fucking fixed that rug. Because that's the sort of shit that I think about. You know, I really try to picture everything in my head. And it's like, okay, if I moved a rug, someone's going to see I moved a rug. You know, it's like in a movie. If it happens, it happens. And you got to deal with it. And I expect, like, when Ziggy is DMing me, I expect him to think of shit like that. Or if not, I will still do it. I'll still say, like, I fixed the rug. Because you never know. And then he may be like, oh, yeah, I would have busted his ass for not fixing that rug. So, this is just how I think. But, this is not how they think. And I think me mentioning this upset them. Because they were like, oh, well, you know, if you're going to that degree, you know, there's... You could just think of anything and blah, you know, it's like... They sort of got upset that they had to think that logically, I think. And I didn't even really realize it at first, because it's just like... Duh. I mean... Obviously, you have to think about your actions and the consequences of them. And, you know, if you're trying to be sneaky, you have to be sneaky. You know, you can't just leave a corpse there. It's the same thing, you know. I don't know. I didn't think about it. But I think what really it did, what me saying that really did, was made them realize that they were not cut out for this. And it made them realize that if they try and do this heist and try and do this properly, they're gonna fuck up. They're gonna get caught. They're gonna make some mistake in logic, or, you know, not realizing something, and I was gonna screw them over because I am some master DM that knows everything and will fuck them over, and they got discouraged, I think. So in hindsight, probably not the best hint for them. And so after that, they got really, like, antsy. And they sort of got sick of it. They were like, well, let's just charge in through the front door. That's never what you want to hear. Fuck. And then they used up the third hint for, like, what should we do? What's a plan? What can we do? And I'm like, look, you've come up with so many, like, good starts of ideas. You just need to commit to one. And early in the first session, my aunt mentioned like a decent start to a plan that was even mentioned in the module as like a potential plan. And that was to basically pretend to be artists that want to paint the Archpriest portrait. And so that gets you in the castle, into like the Archpriest study with like a big trunk full of art supplies, with only a handful of guards. I mean, really, that's a pretty good scenario. And so they're like, all right, we're going with that. That's what we're going to do.
I need.
So at that point, I sort of realized, like, they were kind of desperate to get this over with. It had run its course. So I cut them a lot of slack from then on. But, I told them, like, okay, none of you are, like, world-class painters. You know? None of you are really going to be painters of a caliber that would please the Archpriest and get you through the door. So what you really need is to either find a high-quality artist and have him, you know, make up some sketches or something for you, or just find some high-quality art somewhere and either buy it or steal it. So you can say, like, look, here's some of my work. I'm obviously talented, blah, blah, blah. Rather than just being like, oh, I'm an artist. Trust me, I'm really good. Let me see the Archpriest, you know. And again, it's just like, I don't know if they would have even thought that far. They probably would have just thought like, oh, we can paint, sure. So they went to the market and they bought a bunch of art supplies, and apparently they said that they bought like a high quality painting at the market. And I didn't even like catch it when they said, they just sort of slipped it in. So obviously I didn't charge them the right price for a high quality painting at the market. And then later when they mentioned that they pull out the painting, I'm like, And then they also mentioned like, oh, you know what we should do is we should just put a false bottom into this big trunk, so we can hide some weapons. That was the only, that's all they said. That's what they said. They're like, we should put a false bottom in this trunk to hide our weapons. And then they continued on. And then when they got up to the Archpriest study and they started like painting with, and they were going to jump the guards, they're like, okay, we pull out the false bottom of the trunk. And I'm like, what? What, motherfucker? That's not how this works. You can't just say we should do this and then it happens. Like, do you have the right tools? Do you have the right know-how to make a false bottom in a trunk? You didn't spend any time doing this. Where did you do this? In the middle of the market? I mean, it's like, you can't say this shit. So I had to deny that. I was like, no, that did not happen. I'm sorry. They actually have a bad habit in general of just being like, okay, well, I go here and this happens. And we find this. And it's like, you're not the fucking DM. All right? Let's reiterate that again.
A known leader among scavengers, believed to be present and wanted on 4 counts of first-degree murder.
I think they'd almost be happier just like telling a communal story or something, you know? Like, they don't even need dice rolls. Like, they could remove dice rolls entirely. They'd probably be kind of happy because they would just always succeed. I think they'd like that. Like, they always find the right thing. They always find the right treasure. They always succeed. My mom at one point was like, I sneak down into the dungeons, and if there's any guards there, I just kill them, because I'm like Wonder Woman. And it's like, what? What? So, so they get into a scuffle with the guards in the Archpriest study. I I give them, like, there's a fireplace, so I give them some fire pokers. I'm like, all right, there you go. You have some weapons. You're fighting armed, trained guards that specifically guard the fucking Pope, but sure. They got massacred, I'll be honest. Like, 3 out of the 4 of them, like, got one shot. Because basically anytime the guards, like, landed a hit, it was pretty much a killing blow. Oh, and I was gonna say, like, my sister, before they got in there, she got antsy and she wanted to find some art. So she just, like, walked down the street. She saw some nice art through some guy's window. So she jumped through the window in the middle of, like, the crowded street when the guy was home. She just jumped through the window and just grabbed the art and just jumped out. And then I had guards chasing her, and she's like, what are these guards doing right here? Like, how was I supposed to know there'd be guards right there? And I'm like, you jumped through this guy's window in the middle of the crowded street on the main thoroughfare of the entire city. So she eventually got caught and arrested and got thrown in the dungeons, and she was not too pleased. I'm like, you know, you made your bed. You gotta lie in it. So then, yeah, my mom was like doing this whole other thing where she was pretending to be kind of like a prostitute, like I said. And so when all this, like, when the fighting happened on the 3rd floor and she was on the 2nd floor, she's like, oh, I rush up there to help. And it's like, I mean, what there's like 30 guards in between you and that room, including these fucking Terminators. You know, obviously I should have taken your weapon away when you came into the castle to be a prostitute. You shouldn't have a crossbow on you. But at that point, I was just cutting them so much slack. I'm like, all right, fine, you fucking arrive. Because 2 of them had already got almost killed. So she actually ended up being like the last survivor and killing the last guards with her crossbow. So it worked out, I guess. And she rolled really well to, like, bandage up the others. And I'm like, all right, look, if you stuff the archpriest in this trunk and just make your way out, you know, you might have to bluff somebody, but if you can do that, you can get out of the castle before anyone notices. And sure enough, they do. They bump into the butler, and they make a lie about how the archpriest is tired and sent them away for a couple hours, and they'll come back. And I'm like, all right, he believes you, blah, 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 and you make it out. And they left my sister to rot in the dungeon, and they got back, they completed the job, and they got paid. And I'm like, all right, let's never do something like that again. I mean, maybe they learned some valuable lessons, but in the future, we're going to go with something a little bit simpler.
I will personally find you.
We're just going to go with, like, basic, Oh, here you go. Here's what I was talking about, where cops just manifest out of... Look at this. Look at this. These cops literally just fucking manifested. Insane. We're just gonna do, like, simple, like, one-shot stuff out in the forest in, like, small remote settlements and things like that. Like, nothing big. Nothing big. They'll probably like that a lot more. All right. Last thing, I guess. This is the juicy thing I wanted to talk about, because it's been years. It's been years since I had something juicy to discuss on Hanging with Mangg. And in the early days of Hanging with Mangg, we did that all the time. Back when I lived in the real world. I mean, not super, I mean, you know, fucking around at Applebee's and stuff, but hanging with Mangg has been a little boring for quite some time, and I got some... Oh, God. Well, I mean, it involves a female. I'll say that. I don't want to reveal too much. You know, protect the innocent. And I don't think she'll listen to this. I really don't think so, but, you know, we'll just play it safe. It's like so outlandish. It's like it's I wouldn't even say it's like a movie. It's just like it's fucking Mangg's life. That's what it is. It's something that happens to Mangg. All right. So earlier this week, I get a message on Twitter from this girl. And this girl was a fan of the Exploring series. Big fan. And earlier in the year, like multiple occasions, she's messaged me and said, like, oh, you know, I'm a really big fan. I really admire you. You're really awesome. Blah, blah, blah. And she even admitted to being like thirsty, I guess, you know, trying to slide into my DMs and all that. But I was just like, I mean, okay, she's attractive, but like, this could be this could be some sort of bot trying to, you know, get me to send $20, or this girl could be 16 for all. I mean, who knows? Who knows? And I was just like, I was just polite, and I just sort of kind of brushed her off. And so time went by until this week, and she messages me, you know, fairly late at night. Well, not, I mean, she's from a different time zone. So for her, it was very late at night. For me, it was just kind of late at night. I'm sure you can tell where this is going, but she says, like, she says that she needs my consent for what she's about to do. And trust me, my first thought was not nudes. My first thought was this is fucking scary to me. Like, people do some scary shit with YouTubers and stuff. I mean, like, do you need my consent to break in my front door? Like, what? Like, you're not even sane. Like, this is scary to me. That's pretty much what I said. I'm like, this sounds ominous. I don't know what you're talking about. What am I consenting to? And sure enough, she says, well, you know, nudes. And I'm like, well, I mean, look, I'm a single guy. Most people in my position would have done the same thing. So I'm like, look, I mean, as long as you're over 18, you know, I'm not going to stop you. No harm, no foul. So she sends me nudes. Which I think is like the official point you've made it as a YouTuber. I think that's like, you know, some celebrities say you've made it once you've been on The Simpsons, but in the YouTube world, Once you get sent nudes by a girl, that's the point. So that sort of like broke the ice, I guess. Funny as it is. And she sort of went, like, she was like, you know, she said she, you know, tried to get my attention in the past, you know, and I just sort of brushed her off because I was just trying to be polite. You know, I'm not, whatever. Yeah, I try to just be polite to everyone that messages me. And I think she was a little tipsy. She had been partying and suddenly developed the gumption to do this. And it's like, well, yeah, you certainly got my attention. There's no doubt about that. And so we got to talking. And, you know, she's a big fan of SCP, obviously. She's a big fan of horror in general, and she reads, you know, Lovecraft and other horror short stories, and she really likes horror movies. And I'm like, all right, this sounds awesome. You could have just opened with that, you know, instead of nudes. And then I mentioned, like, I was gonna go play D&D with my family for New Year's Eve, and she was like, oh, it sounds awesome, I love D&D. Like, hold up now. Now, my thought at that point was like, all right, this girl's just saying
Get away with that!
whatever. You know, like when you go on a date or something, you just say all sorts of shit about yourself that is like half true or partially true. You know, you just try to be as presentable as possible to the other person. And I'm like, okay, you sure you love D&D? Yeah, okay. But she elaborated a little bit more and talked about how she came up with like this whole steampunk campaign setting and things like that. And I was like, all right, this could be legit. And, you know, we continued to chat. She lives in Europe. That's about as specific as I'll be, I guess. She lives in Europe, recently graduated college, got like a double degree in political science and financial. I don't know if that's a name of a degree in Europe or something, but that's what she said. She speaks like 5 languages or some nonsense. And she came across as smart and educated and, you know, obviously very direct, very extroverted. I'm not extroverted. So, I mean, this is a girl that really wanted to, you know, wanted to chat with me and wanted to, you know, get to know me more. And at the rate that I was going, just sort of being polite and brushing her off, that was never going to happen. So she figured the best way to do it was to send nudes. And apparently she was right, I guess. I mean, hard to say. So I don't want to go into too many details here. It's private stuff. But let me say this to you guys. I'm not an idiot. You know, I'm not an idiot. And I don't think it's going to work out. I don't think it's going to work out in the long run. And I'll tell you why, and I'm sure you'll probably agree. First of all, this girl lives in Europe. But she was really only there for college, and so sometime this year she's going to have to go back to Latin America, where her home is. And she does not really want to go back to Latin America. She really wants to come to the United States of fucking America. And really, who wouldn't? But it's not easy. If you don't win the lottery right away and get born in the U.S., it's not the easiest thing in the world to be able to move here.
Do
And yeah, there is a way. There is a way. A somewhat easier way for someone living in a foreign country to gain access to the U.S. She said early on, she said, look, hey, this isn't like a green card scam. You know, I'm not just trying to chat you up just to get a green card. It's like, well, that's exactly what you would say, of course, if you were trying to just get a green card. But I probably believe her. I don't think she initiated anything just to get a green card. But she did say that if I did get her a green card, like, oh, it's a done deal. I mean, she'll move in with me, all that, just craziness. Just craziness. This is a girl that is as fucking laughable as it is. This is a girl that is just infatuated. All right. So, yes, I think if I was of a mindset and I was lost in my own mind and I wanted some hot European love bunny and all I had to do was give her a green card, sure, I could be living that life. But I think I'll pass on that. Largely because of some other things that she said. She seems to live a very luxurious lifestyle. And she has admitted to living a luxurious lifestyle. I guess her family has a business back home in Latin America that is quite lucrative. And that has sort of been paying for her time in Europe, in college, and for her somewhat luxurious lifestyle. And, you know, she shared like one of her Instagram posts with me. And I looked at her watch and I looked it up. Seems to be like, I don't know, a $1,500 watch or something. And, like, let's just be clear. I cannot be with someone that is used to a lifestyle that involves $1,500 watches. Even if I was, like, a multi-millionaire. I just don't really want to be with someone that is interested in $1,500 watches. That's just so not me, you know? Not that there's anything wrong with it. Like, if you like watches, you like money, you like fashion and jewelry, and if that interests you, you be you. You do whatever the fuck you want. I'm just saying that's so not Mangg. And, like, I just could not relate to that. And she's used to just this sort of luxurious lifestyle. And it's like, and you know, living it up in in Europe and going to Italy and Norway and Paris and, you know, all these places. And and it's like, look, I live in Wisconsin, all right? We don't do fancy things in Wisconsin. I mean, I can take you to a state fair. I can get you a cream puff, perhaps. If you want to go somewhere, we can take a fishing vacation to Minnesota, maybe. But, yeah, That's what we do around here. And she basically admitted to, you know, wanting to explore the world and see the world, and, you know, she's young and she just wants to blah blah blah. And it's like, I'm almost fucking 31, which she did not know at first because I have a young looking face. Like, I'm almost 31. I'm just looking for someone to play D&D with, and like Final Fantasy 14. That's it. That's all I'm looking for. I don't need to jet set off to Italy with fancy watches. But truth be told, that alone is not what makes me think this isn't going to work. And I still haven't hit you with the bombshell. But we were talking on the phone. We had a phone call conversation that lasted for a few hours. I mean, it was fine. But during the phone call, as she's talking about her lifestyle, she said some troubling things. She admitted quite openly and quite freely to being a narcissist. On the one hand, that's fucking terrifying. On the other hand, I do have to give her credit for not trying to hide it. She's not like a closet narcissist that I would find out after like 2 years or something like that. I mean, she's very upfront about it so that I can steer the fuck clear. And it wasn't like, oh, you know, sometimes I feel like I kind of have like narcissistic traits, or, you know, some people have called me a narcissist, but I don't know. No, it was literally, I'm a narcissist. Like, that's that sort of red flag. Like, I'm drowning in this red flag. It has enveloped me. I can only see red at this point. She also referred to herself as a spoiled princess, which obviously makes sense considering everything else. And she said that she wants to stay young and beautiful for the rest of her life. And I'm just sitting there, like, this is on a phone call, so it's not like I could just sort of, like, you know, sit there on texting and just, like, let it sit for an hour. Like, I'm on a phone call, so it's like, what the fuck am I supposed to say to that? Do you know who the fuck you're talking to? You know, you're not talking to some, like, Norwegian prince or something. You're talking to fucking Mangg. I spend 14 hours a day in front of a computer screen. You know? I make videos about SCP and Dungeons and Dragons and spend the rest of my time making Let's Plays. Like, who could have hung up? Yeah, I mean, it was terrifying. And she didn't seem to think much of it. It was just very nonchalant. Don't act like you aren't stacked off the Exploring series. I mean, I do okay. I can pay my bills, and I, you know, live in a nice little condo with my 3 cats. But I'm not getting $1,500 watches and flying to Italy for, you know, $200 dinners and shit. I don't know. You know, that's a much different life. Feel like she's just super starstruck. Yeah, I mean, that's what I said. She's obviously very infatuated, and I think, like, the more she gets to know me, that'll go away. Because it's just like, again, I don't want to get into details. I'll just say it's private. And, you can sort of let your imagination work. But it's like, look, I just want to sit here and play, like, Minecraft with you or some shit, you know? That's all I need. I don't really like Minecraft, but I think it's a fairly, simple game that two people can just sort of hang out and do together. And, she does not seem interested in video games whatsoever. And I think really that's like one of the most devastating things. Aside from the narcissism thing. But like, I cannot be with someone that doesn't like video games. Maybe that's fucked up, but it's like, we would have so little in common. Not like I'm not willing to compromise or something like that, but I don't know, man. No video games? It's crazy. Crazy. Mangg talking to one of these is rare. That's what hanging with Mangg is. Unless you mean talking about shit like this, in which case, yes, this is a very rare situation that I have found myself in. She likes D&D, but not video games. That was the shocking thing to me. I don't think I've ever heard of someone like that. That, like, blew my mind that you could play Dungeons and Dragons and not video games. I'm sure those people exist, but that's rare. Talking in general, most of the time it's radio silent. What? I mean, well, depending on what I'm doing in the game, I can get distracted, but I try to talk through the whole thing. That's the point. I don't know how into D&D she is. She said that she originally got into it because she had a crush on, like, a DM. Or something like that. But, I mean, she said she's played it a bunch and came up with this campaign and things like that. But, I don't know. But having someone into D&D is fine, but it's like anyone could get into D&D. If I meet a girl that's into video games but not D&D and she's never played, right, I mean, we can work with that. But not playing video games? Crazy. Have I told Lego? Yeah, we had a chat about it. He thought the whole situation was fucking hilarious, which it is. I mean, it is. It's so ridiculous. But yeah, I don't know. So I'm just like, I'm not like enamored. And I have to say this just because, I mean, it is something. She is fucking hot as hell. I mean, that's why I thought, okay, this is like a catfish at first or something like that. This is some sort of fake botting or some sort of scam. This girl is like a 9. Like a European 9. And I have no idea what she sees in me. And I should say, I don't want to weird you guys out with this comment, but she seems to think that I have a very erotic voice, and that's what she loves. I've never heard that before. I don't think I've ever heard that as a comment. I mean, obviously, people tell me all the time they like my voice and things like that, and that's fine. She seems to think it has a very erotic quality. Sure. But she was shocked, quite shocked, for whatever reason, at how overwhelmingly male my audience is on the Exploring series. Because it's like 92%. 92% of my audience is male. She could not believe it. Because she's like, I didn't know your channel was so homoerotic. Because she seemed to think that's the only reason people are like watching my shit. Is because I have an erotic voice. So all these men watching are just like in love with my erotic voice. And it's like, that's not, guys don't think about shit like that. It's just, hopefully I just make good SCP videos. Why does it have to be homoerotic? Oh, God. Anyways. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work out. I mean, she's hot. Very hot. But, like, I think if she had gotten to me, like, if I was, like, 22. I was, like, 21, 22, and I was in the same position in life, and this 21, 22-year-old girl that looked like this had started chatting me up, I would have been, like, I would have been a stooge. You know, I would have been, like, I would have been caught in the pussy trap, as they say. Because I would have been young and stupid, and that would have been all that. But at my age, I can walk away from something like this. Yeah, I mean, she really likes my voice. I mean, you guys might be okay with my voice. She really likes it. Yeah, at this point, it's just like, I don't know. I'm just looking for a nice girl to settle down with that isn't a narcissist, that is fine going to a state fair once in a while to get a cream puff. Likes video games. Wants to watch a horror movie. I mean, it's all pretty basic shit. So, now as for actually sort of letting her down easy, I don't think we can really do a clean break here. I'm a little scared. I mean, she hasn't really done anything that scary, other than admitting to being a narcissist and a spoiled princess and stuff like that. But I'm a little concerned. You know, if I just say like, hey, it's over. You know, you never know. You never know. So all I can say is if you see some screenshots of Twitter chats, it's all Photoshop. None of it's real. No. You know. I think, like, if I just sort of pretend to be busy and just sort of stop chatting with her as much, she'll lose interest. This is fucking wild. Yeah, that's what I've said like 20 times this week. This is fucking wild. And it's like, this is just such a Mangg thing to have happen. Who does this happen to? This, and that's what I said. It's like, this is something for hanging with Mangg. Finally, I have something interesting to talk about. She's fully convinced, though, that I'm going to just be continually bombarded by thirsty females as I continue to grow the channel. She thinks that she is just the first of many. And I'm like, I don't think so. Most of the messages I get are like from people that want me to read their SCP. Or they just want to thank me for doing shit on the channel. This is really a kind of an outlier, I think. This is the first time you stop by. Well, I think we sort of peaked here, you know. This probably tops anything I've ever had. I guess I have to mention, just because it's a nice little cherry on top of the ridiculousness. Her family's wealth and why she lives her luxurious lifestyle as she does. Her family's wealth comes from an ostrich leather farm. Her family farms ostriches for leather. Like what do you and the first like question that I had, like the first thing I thought of was, well, do you eat the ostriches after you skin them? Because it seems like, you know, what a waste. Why would you not? But they don't. And that's how you know that's some luxury shit. That's like a wealthy family. If you're growing ostriches for leather and then not eating them, you've got a lot of money. Because I'm doing okay in life. But if you gave me ostrich meat, I would eat it. So, yeah. That's... I mean, what can you say? What can you say to all this? Oh, God. So that's how my week's been going. I mean, I really hope that she doesn't watch this. I mean, I asked her if she watched, like, my gaming channel. She had no idea it existed, and it didn't sound like she was that interested. So, I don't think she'll watch this, but... I mean, she's not like a piece of shit, or, you know, she's not like a bitch or anything like that. She's been very nice. You know, being a narcissist isn't a good thing at all, but she's an honest narcissist. She hasn't tried to, like, scam me out of any money or anything like that. She's not a bad person, I wouldn't say, but we are just not compatible. Oh, yeah. So I'd like to just sort of avoid ever telling my parents about this. I wouldn't want to have to, like if the relationship progressed, I'd be like, yeah, Mom and Dad, I'm getting a green card for this woman. She says she's a narcissist, but she comes from good money. She comes from ostrich leather. So I'm gonna have to fly to Paris every other weekend. Otherwise, she'll dump my ass. Maybe when looking for someone, it's best to look for a person that isn't a fan of your content, like don't know about your channel. That's what my thought was, yes. I was not looking for this girl. Because, like, who could imagine that someone like this exists? But yeah, I'd really prefer to just meet someone that has, you know, not that they don't like SCP, maybe, but maybe they don't know what it is. And they don't know about the Exploring series. I think that would be a good start. But yeah, just wild shit, and I figured you guys would get a kick out of it. And it seems I was right, so. My friends have certainly gotten a kick out of it. Oh, yeah. Watch Mangg go missing in a week. Well, if I do, I think you guys all have a suspect. Tell the police to check my Twitter DMs. They'll find her. They'll find her. Yeah. It's, yeah. Yeah. But anyways. I doubt next week's Hanging with Mangg will be as interesting, but I might have, you know, something else to talk about related to that. We'll see. But for now, let's see. We got the Church of the Second High Toth video coming out. The first Final Fantasy video. Fingers crossed on that one. We've got more Cyberpunk, more Dragon Quest, more Final Fantasy. Two Brothers Play next Saturday. Blair Witch Episode 3 Part 2 this Wednesday. And probably my top 10 games of 2020. I think we should do that this week. All sounds good. Thank you guys for tuning in, for listening to some 100% true. I mean, this is not me just making nonsense up. That is true shit that I have said. Wild as it is. I mean, who the fuck would make up ostrich leather? Who the fuck would make that up? Yeah. All right. My name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. See you fine folks next week.